lot of different ways to bring images into PhotoFusion. If you're just new to it, you might think the fastest way is to come from the Windows Explorer, dragging and dropping an image into the PhotoFusion composition. That's true if you have the window open up already, as I did, but you'll find that there are faster ways of doing it inside PhotoFusion. But let's just start by looking at what I did. I dragged from Windows into the canvas area, and I got a new blank frame which I can pick up and move around and work with in several different ways. I could also have gone from Windows and dragged it into the background here, up in the gray area. And what that does is it sets that image as a background image. People frequently ask, can you make the background blurry or out of focus or lighter? The answer is sure. You click anywhere in the canvas and this editor here will open up. You click on the image part, not the border and not the shadow, but the image, and you'll get an editor that looks like this, which allows you to adjust, for example, the gamma, and I'll make the image very light. That's a look that you see frequently in professional wedding albums. Perhaps I'll blur it. What I'm doing is I'm mousing down, I'm pressing the button on top of the word blur, and then dragging to the right or to the left, as you see. And there's no OK, there's no confirm, and everything that you do is non-destructive. If you change your mind and decide that you'd rather not have that very bright look, then you can change the gamma, or you can go back and remove the blur as you like. The images that you bring in don't have to be regular JPEG images, as you saw. You can create, for example, a PNG. Any scrapbooking kit that you find on the web, for example, which contains a lot of PNG images, you can simply drag and drop those images into PhotoFusion and they will work and they will look great. When you do this, what you're doing is creating a reference to the original image on your disk. We've got this carabiner and this image which are pointing at these locations on disk. And if I were to delete or move or rename this image, then PhotoFusion would become confused. The next time you ask to render the composition out at high res, PhotoFusion is going to go back and look for this image, and if it doesn't find it, then it's going to complain. The way to fix this is to have PhotoFusion look for the images in a folder. I don't need to reconnect my images, so there's no need to do it, but if you do rename a folder or change where your pictures are located, then you can reconnect them there using the tools Locate Missing Images item. Another thing to think about, just as we're thinking of dropping images, is the size of the image that gets dropped. I'll go back to the images here and take this image and drop it on the canvas. What is it that made it this particular size? Why did PhotoFusion make it this big instead of much bigger? The answer can be found here. I got here by clicking on the canvas resize handle. There are other ways to get to the canvas size dialog, but that's the fastest way. You'll see these controls here: size, dropped images at, and by default PhotoFusion will drop it at 40% of the canvas width. I could also have said drop the image at 300 dpi. PhotoFusion will look at the size of the image. For example, here in Windows, this image is 3600 pixels across, so that will wind up being about 10 inches on this canvas. And you can see there it's a bit more than 10 inches. Personally, I prefer to work with using the percentages. I'll just go and change it back to being 40% of the canvas width. I just find that this is frequently a more useful size like this, and there it's a size that I can pick up. And if I want to, I can always resize it like this, but that's the difference between the two dropping modes. Now, where can you drop images from? I've been working with Windows so far, and to get from PhotoFusion to Windows, I'm pressing the Alt key down and then tapping the Tab key like this. So I get Windows up, I drag and drop into PhotoFusion like that. If I want to go back, press Alt Tab. This is nothing specific to PhotoFusion, this is just the way that Windows works, swapping between current applications using Alt Tab. You could do it another way. You could drag the image down to where the Windows taskbar is. It'll pop up, and if you hover over the Lumapix PhotoFusion icon and continue to drag, you'll see that you can go from Windows into PhotoFusion that way as well. Another way to do it is to use the image hover, this control here. And what this does is it opens a particular folder and allows you to drag images from that folder onto the canvas. it's faster than using the Windows Explorer. You still have access, if you click on this button here, to the tree of different folders. And if you continue and drag an image from there onto your canvas, you'll see that it disappears so that you can bring it back very quickly. You don't have to remember the Alt key combination to pick images up and move around as we were doing before. I personally consider it much, much faster. By the way, if you don't want to keep moving the way that I'm doing here, in and out of the image's hover, you can drag the hover like this, and now it's over top of your canvas, and you can drop as many images as you like this, without having to relaunch it every time. The folders that I visited are showing up here. Every time I clicked on a folder in my Windows file system, it showed up here, which gives me very quick access to folders that I've worked with before. It's just a way to see a list of most recently used folders and quickly jump to them for work. Another place that you can take images from is the Browse button. If you click here, this will bring up a modal file browser, which allows you to select images in a much more traditional Windows way. I'm holding the Control key down here, and when I say open, they're going to be attached to the cursor, which allows me to drop them into various frames, to use the mouse wheel to roll from one image to the next, and then drop an image, let's say, in the background like that. I'll press Escape to close the dropper and point out that you also have access to this control here from the File menu. Choosing File, Add Images will bring up this modal browser as well. Another way to work is using the organizer. I'll just, before I go in there, delete all of these images and then click on Organize. You'll see that this is, again, a tree structure which allows you to find images. Simply select on them, and then there are several ways to get images from the organizer into the Create tab. The fastest way is to press the mouse button down on an image and then drag it. I'm continuing to hold onto the Create tab, and then still holding the mouse button down, drag it out onto the canvas and release it. There are other ways of doing it. If, for example, you want to take a few random images and you Control click to select them, and then realize that you wanted to get images from another folder, one way to remember the selection that you have so far is to work with a bucket. You can drag and drop into a bucket down here, and now if I click on the bucket, you'll see only those images that I selected. And what this allows you to do is to go off and find other images in this folder, let's say, and place these images also into the bucket. The point being that when you get back to the Create tab, you can bring up the buckets list, and there is the bucket. We have 4 available by default, but they're all living in the first bucket, and I can say take these images and drag them onto the canvas like this. Also in the organizer, you'll notice that we have this keywords field over here. For example, I'm going to go off to this travel section and say that this is a shot that was taken in the desert. When I tap the Enter key, you'll see that desert shows up, and if I also add the keyword Tunisia, that will show up as a keyword for the selected image in the organizer. Now when I go to the Create tab, we have yet another way of doing it, which is to search. If I click here, or hover the mouse over that control and say desert, I don't have to type the whole thing in. I can just type DES and it will find anything that begins with that, including stuff which is on the store, perhaps more than I need. I'll just keep typing DESE, and now we'll see that this is the only, oh, there's a dinosaur egg paper. This allows you to quickly find things. I could also have typed Tunisia, T-U-N-I-S, and it will find anything that begins with Tunisia and allow me to drag that to the canvas as well. Finally, I can work with the web in Photo Fusion. I'm going to go to Flickr. Any photo site will do, any website at all actually will do, but I'm going to go into Flickr where I've searched for the word Montreal. This is a picture that I happen to like of Montreal taken by a photographer that we don't know, but I'll use it as an example. I'm going to mouse down in Flickr, drag and drop into Photo Fusion, and you'll see that the image shows up. And it's just like any other image in Photo Fusion. I can adjust the border, change the drop shadow, and so on. So as you can see, there are several different ways to bring images into Photo Fusion. You can come from the web, directly from Windows. You can use the built-in tools such as the image hover, or the buckets, or the search. You can drag things directly from the organizer into the Create tab. There's no shortage of ways to get your images into a composition.